Welcome to Meet the Presentations, a webinar hosted by the MFLC training team to introduce you to some of the new presentations in our recently updated OSD Presentation Library. It's nice to meet you. I am Kathy Hadley-Wilson, your MFLC training specialist, and I will be facilitating the first part of this webinar. I have a few announcements to share as we begin this webinar which is a little different from Zoom meetings. In webinars, participants cannot share audio or video. If you cannot hear the presenter, please double check your device settings. Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation so that you won't miss out on important information being discussed. To share a question, you will be able to use the Q&A feature towards the end of the webinar. We will answer your questions at that time. A recording of this webinar will be available on the MFLC website in just a few days. Here is your MFLC training team. Christy Gardner is our Director of Learning and Development, and Teresa Boehner is our MFLC training manager. Together, we welcome you to today's webinar. Teresa is calling in from Hawaii, and I'm calling in from Georgia. And Christy will be joining us from the Washington, D.C. area. Always remember that we're here for you to support your training needs. This slide shows our agenda for this one-hour webinar. We will begin with a review of how to access the new OSD Presentation Library, including accessing resources and videos from the new presentations. Then we'll jump into meeting our first presentation entitled Military Transitions, Child Focused. After that, Teresa will join us to introduce you to our new presentation called Resilience During Uncertainty. We'll wrap up the webinar with a brief discussion of tips for preparing to facilitate presentations at your assignment site and a reminder of the resources available for sharpening your public speaking skills. We aim to have a small amount of time at the end of our webinar for live questions and answers, but remember that your regional supervisor is the best source of information when it comes to specific questions related to your unique MFLC assignment. First, let's begin with a review about the presentation library. Where are the presentations located? What tools are available? Let's discuss this first. There are 35 new presentations that were created in 2022 and early in 2023 by our training team of trainers, our MFLC counselors, which are our subject matter experts, our SMEs, our instructional designers, and our technical writers. These presentations are replacing our soon-to-be archived presentation collection. Our old presentations are still available on the website until our government customer instructs us to remove them. Here are some of the topics that are included in our new presentation lineup: military life experiences, family life education, psychoeducation, relationships and communication, and healthy habits, just to name a few. We're going to take a moment to review how to access the presentations in the new OSD library, presentation library. You will find the OSD presentation on the MFLC website. After logging into MagellanMFLC.org with your Magellan username and password, you will click on Briefings and Presentations on the upper right menu bar. From the drop-down menu, click on OSD Presentations. Once you get to the OSD Presentations page, You will then click the blue button, which now provides one-click access to the new OSD Presentation Library for all Magellan Federal Employee MFLC counselors. Subcontractors will double-check with their employee for access instructions. Beneath the blue button, you will find a list of that MFLC counselor. Find a list that MFLC counselors can use as a tool to identify which presentations may best meet the needs of service members and their families at their assignment site. One list provides brief summaries of each presentation in the library, which is helpful information to use when identifying which presentations you will share with your POC. We encourage MFLC counselors to look through this list, jot down a few options for their assignment site, and share that short list of 3 to 5 options with their POC. We hope to have a brochure available soon. Another link provides a list of all handouts and shareable activities in the library, including which presentation folders where they are located. In addition, a facilitator guide access point is included so that any MFLC counselor can access the facilitator guide at any time. Remember that facilitator guides are excellent tools which may be used by the MFLC counselor to facilitate a presentation using discussion and interactive approaches, even if the PowerPoint file cannot be shared at the assignment site. Remember, facilitator guides are gold. At the bottom of the page, you'll find the MFLC training team's recorded introduction webinar for accessing the OSD Presentation Library and answers to some frequently asked questions. You'll also see the recording of last month's Meet the Presentation webinar. Did you know that you can search the library for a keyword or topic? This is a snapshot of the homepage you'll see when accessing the OSD Presentation Library. Locate the search bar at the top of the screen. This is where you can type a topic that is relevant for your assignment site to see what the library can offer related to that topic. We recommend searching 1 or 2 word phrases in the search bar. Some examples include communication, deployment, relationship, conflict, or stress. Once you've clicked the blue button on the previous slide to access the library, you can now click on the video link on the left-hand side of the page to view a complete quick access point for all videos included in the presentation library. Remember that videos are versatile tools which MFLC counselors can use to enhance any MFLC interaction, whether it's a presentation, a consulting session, or even a counseling session. Facilitator guides of presentations include suggested discussion questions to facilitate learning and reflection after sharing videos. Several of the videos that we will meet today may be utilized inside or outside of a presentation setting. So feel free to scroll through the video listing to view all the videos available. Next, let's review 3 ways that you can download large files from the library. MFLC counselors may notice that trying different ways to download the files may be a good idea when downloading large files, especially if the internet connection is not strong. First, of course, you can always click the file title to open up the file in a browser, and you can download it there. Next, you can also click on the download button at the top of the menu bar. This will download the file to the computer or device that you're using. This option is available after clicking the blue checkbox to the left of the file title. Lastly, you can click the three dots to the right of the file title and to the left of the description identified by number 3 in this screenshot. Clicking on the three dots reveals a new pop-up menu. Select the download to download the file to the computer or device that you're using. The first presentation we will meet is entitled Military Transitions, Child Focused. It is a child-focused presentation, but stay tuned because even if you support an adult-focused assignment site, some of the videos and activities in this presentation may benefit your MFLC support of adults at your assignment site. This presentation may be an important tool for many of our MFLC counselors to share at their assignment site. In this presentation, the MFLC counselor will facilitate a learning experience to lead an audience to learn about the many transitions of military life, share and discuss experiences of PCS moves, learn more about our emotions, learn about resilience builders, learn about having a growth mindset. Part of this presentation can be shared with a group of children. Others can be shared with a group of adults. And activities and videos can be utilized in any number of MFLC interactions during counseling and consulting sessions. Let's briefly review how to access the presentation files in the new OSD Presentation Library. First, locate the Military Transitions Child Focus folder, which is listed alphabetically. On the page that appears next, you'll see a Handouts folder and a Presentations folder. And click Presentations to see the PowerPoint presentation, including the compressed PowerPoint files, which may be used for emailing if needed. Also included in each presentation folder are the PDF facilitator guides and a PDF copy of the PowerPoint file. After an interactive icebreaker activity, the presentation moves to slide 4, where a discussion of the different types of transitions that military children often experience is facilitated. This is where the MFLC counselor identifies the idea of transitions and challenges for military children and what some common challenges are. These include, as we see on the slide here, PCS or permanent change of station, TDY or temporary duty assignments, and changes to work schedules and home routines that often accompany military work schedules and impact children and their families' rhythm and routine. This slide helps to set the stage for future in-depth discussions about military transitions. One of the reasons that this presentation is such a versatile tool for MFLC counselors is that it includes 4 beautiful animated videos to illustrate different concepts within this topic. Here we see 2 of these videos highlighted, the different perspective video from slide 6 and the kids stress response video on slide 8. The different perspectives video includes the idea that there are many different ways to look at challenges, like moving to a new duty station, and some of those angles might even be exciting. The language used by the characters in the videos demonstrate a growth mindset inspired language. This is a great video to share with a group of children in a presentation or a group of adults in a presentation to talk about parenting strategies related to helping children consider different perspectives. In addition, this video could be used in a counseling session with a child that may benefit from exploring the concepts of looking at a situation differently. Double check the facilitator guide for this presentation for more ideas about adapting discussions of this video with your specific audience. The kids' response video walks through multiple exercises that provide centering, grounding, and relaxation techniques in a developmentally appropriate ways. This video would also be excellent to share in a presentation with children. We might recommend pausing the video to allow time for the group to practice some of the exercises together. Consider sharing this video during a counseling session to provide an opportunity for learning some of these relaxations and grounding techniques. The facilitator guide for each presentation provides helpful ideas included for this video. Remember that videos may also be accessed by clicking on the Video tab on the menu on the left side of the presentation library. 2 more videos are included as part of this presentation and may be shared while presenting this information in front of a group, or anytime a counselor is facilitating counseling or of consulting sessions and feel that this information will be helpful. The first video on the left is a short video focused on the preschool experience of having a military parent deploy or go on TDY. This video is specifically intended for a younger audience to foster discussions on how children experience the situation. This can be shared with a group of younger children or with a group of parents of young children to talk about common reactions of parental deployment or TDY. The second video, which is shown on the right, focuses on sharing grounding exercises for older children. This video on stress reduction and grounding is available on slide 13. How can you learn more about ways to apply this content to support your unique MFLC assignment and the specific age group of children that you support? The facilitator guide. Remember that the facilitator guide has detailed information, scripts, and suggestions. Two slides, slide 11 and slide 12, shown here, provides 2 different activities. The one in slide 11 on the left, which can be facilitated with younger children, and the one on the right, slide 12, can be facilitated with middle and high school students. Both activities provide opportunities for naming feelings and making space for all different feelings in ourselves and in others. How can you know the steps followed in facilitating these activities? Check the facilitator guide. The facilitator guide provides detailed instructions on how to navigate these activities. Remember that you can facilitate these activities independent of the rest of the presentation. Sharing the entire presentation is not required to facilitate 1 or 2 activities. Before we discuss the handouts available for this presentation, let's review how to access the handout files for this particular presentation. First, locate the Military Transitions folder alphabetically. On the page that appears next, you'll see a handout folder and a presentation folder. Click Handouts to see all available handouts that correspond with this presentation. As we can see here, there are many different handouts available for this particular presentation. This presentation is particularly helpful because it includes multiple different interactive activities written specifically to support children of deployed service members. MFLC counselors may choose to facilitate these activities with a group, facilitate these activities during a counseling session with a child, or share these handouts with parents during a counseling session as suggested take-home activities to promote parent-child communication. As we saw on the last slide, there are multiple activities and handouts available from this presentation. One versatile handout is the one shown on this screen, which describes suggestions for encouraging resilient approaches to adversity and challenges. This handout is written with teenagers in mind and can be used to facilitate conversations with older children on a variety of topics related to and not related to military transitions. For example, this handout might complement a counseling session with a child experiencing parental divorce or a group of children who are preparing to move next summer. We say it all the time. Handouts can complement almost any type of MFLC support and can be used alongside or independent of the rest of the presentation. Another example of a handout available in this presentation is the activity tree, which is a 4-page handout that provides suggestions for activities with multiple different age groups of children. This can be a hand tracing activity or a coloring collaging activity to share with a group of children and discuss a variety of topics like feelings, the different people who support us, and changes in our lives. Check out the discussion questions included as part of the facilitator guide for this presentation. In addition, this handout could nicely complement a presentation or session with parents as a take-home activity for parents to facilitate with their children. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Teresa Boehner, our training manager, who will continue our webinar discussion.
Thanks so much, Kathy. It's great to be here with y'all this morning over in Hawaii, this afternoon on the mainland, or this evening over in Europe and Africa. Now, if you were able to join us for the live or sessions previously facilitated, or view the recording of any of those webinars that we've previously hosted, which focused on this new OSD Presentation Library, you might remember that we discussed handouts and activities as the sprinkles that can be added to complement any form of MFLC support. And the same is true of the handouts, activities, videos, and slides in this presentation, as Kathy has already mentioned a couple of times. Consider sharing this presentation or the resources within at assignment sites when there are many new students or children who have recently PCSed to the location, or when, as we approach the springtime and summertime, sharing this when children's families may be preparing to PCS this summer. Consider sharing these slides or activities for groups of children impacted by other transitions like deployment or other military life challenges. Not only can this presentation be shared as an outreach and engagement activity in front of an audience, but remember, parts of this presentation can also be shared in a consulting session while you provide professional advice or guidance about supporting children whose families are experiencing transitions. And additionally, videos and handouts can also be shared during a counseling session with an eligible parent or a child. Now, as we all know, careful and accurate documentation of MFLC activities and care for is a very important MFLC counselor responsibility. It's how MFLC counselors tell the story of how they're supporting service members and families at their assignment site. When sharing this material as part of a presentation before an audience, be sure to document this interaction as an outreach and engagement activity. Then select presentation. Document the number of audience participants actively involved or engaged in the presentation. And then when the question asks, what type of presentation did you provide? Answer with either parenting or youth, or I should say parenting or child and youth. Our recommendation is that parenting should be selected when this presentation or parts of this presentation are shared with a group of parents. and child and youth should be selected when this presentation or parts of it are shared with a group of children or CDC school or center staff. Now on this screen, we see a reminder that presentation materials can also be utilized in consulting sessions. We say it a lot. When using this part of a presentation in a consulting session, or an idea maybe from the facilitator guide, or a handout, or activity, or video, please answer yes to the question, was a presentation part of this consulting session? And then depending on the group of focus of the consulting session, describe the type of presentation as either parenting or child and youth as we just discussed. Remember that if you use part of this presentation to augment a counseling session, there is no specific Care for documentation implications of this in a counseling session activity record at this time. Simply document the counseling session as you normally would. Remember also that the use of presentation materials during counseling and consulting sessions is not documented as a referral, as referrals describe the ways that MFLC counselors connect service members and families with relevant military and community resources. Please note that Care for documentation of interactions depends on many different variables that may differ slightly from the recommendations that we share here. Please consult with your regional supervisor if specific dynamics at your assignment may result in documenting this presentation differently. And before we introduce you to the second presentation we will meet today, we'd like to share with the group that there are multiple presentations in the new library that can be utilized by MFLC counselors to address concerns related to common military life transitions. These presentations include resilience during uncertainty, which we're about to meet, military life challenges, staying connected through change, dealing with crisis and disaster, and of course, helping children cope with deployment, which we introduced you to during the last Meet the Presentations webinar in November. And remember that a list of all presentations, including brief summaries mentioned on this slide, are available for MFLC counselor reference anytime on the OSD presentation page of the MagellanMFLC.org website. We're going to take a quick break here and share a poll with the group. We'd like to receive some feedback from you about how the presentations are helping you and what you'd like to see in an upcoming Meet the Presentations webinar. I'm going to pull up the poll, and what you'll see in the screen in just a moment are 2 questions. I'll launch the poll now. And choosing to participate in this poll is totally voluntary. You don't have to. And I will tell you that we won't be looking to see who answered what questions. It's anonymous. We won't be seeing which counselors answered which, but we would like to ask you these 2 questions, which you should be able to see now on your screen. The first says, have you been able to share a presentation or any of the resources from the new OSD Presentation Library at your assignment site? We'd love to hear from you, so please answer with us and share with us that information. And then the second question really looks at topics that you might like to see in a future Meet the Presentations webinar. And you can select all that apply. You don't have to pick just one in the second question, but you can share with us that you'd like to hear more about how to use materials in counseling and consulting, or hear about public speaking and presentation tips and tricks. Maybe you'd like to hear about option C, the different presentations available to address different military life topics. Option D talks about details related to what resources are included in the commonly used presentations, kind of like what we've done already. And option E talks about real life scenarios and how the MFLC counselor can use and leverage that new presentation library to support. So feel free to share with us. We have a good number of people who've already responded, so we'll provide just a few more seconds if you'd like to share your thoughts with us. Remember that first question is one option only, and the second question is you can choose as many options as you'd like to share with us. We do appreciate your sharing with us so that we can solicit your feedback and respond by providing a Meet the Presentations in future months that really addresses what you need to hear about, what you are interested in hearing about the presentation library and your unique MFLC assignment. Okay, we're still getting a couple more responses. I'll wait just a few more seconds if you'd like to submit this forward. And I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. We've had about 2 minutes to respond. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We do appreciate you taking a moment to, well, we kind of took a break, right, from the full Meet the Presentations webinar. And now we'll continue moving forward. And we'll introduce you to our second presentation, which we will meet today. And as Kathy already told you, this presentation is entitled Resiliency During Uncertainty. and it's an adult-focused presentation, similar in topic to the child-focused presentation that Kathy shared with us moments ago, as it discusses common military life challenges and challenges which can lead to uncertainty. Now, in this presentation, Resiliency During Uncertainty, the MFLC Counselor will facilitate a learning discussion to discuss the impacts of change due to disasters and challenges or other causes of uncertainty, discuss role changes during expansions within families, and understand life disruptions and emotional strains that can result. We'll also talk about strategies to help presentation participants learn tools for resilience in facing adversity and integrate resilience action steps, which are discussed in some of the handouts and activities. In addition to helping adult participants learn strategies and tools for fostering resilience, this presentation also emphasizes recommendations for parents on the same topic. Because of this unique angle on parenting in several of the slides, this presentation in particular is a versatile resource for both adult-focused and child-focused counselors alike. We'll take a moment to briefly review how to access the handout files and presentation files in the new OSD Presentation Library. First, locate the Resiliency During Uncertainty folder alphabetically. And then on the page that appears next, of course, you'll see the Handouts folder and a Presentations folder. Click the Handouts folder, as we see here, to see all the available handouts and activities that correspond with this presentation. And click Presentations, as we know, to see the PowerPoint presentation file, including the compressed PowerPoint file, which may be used for emailing if needed. Also included in each presentations folder are the PDF Facilitator Guide, that really important file, and now a PDF copy of the PowerPoint file, which is also available for emailing. Excuse me. This presentation opens with a suggested icebreaker activity called Lifeboats. And the Lifeboats activity encourages the group to find commonalities with one another. Key here is noticing that the Facilitator Guide, arguably the most important tool within each presentation, provides a brief but helpful description of how to facilitate this activity. The MFLC Counselor calls out a variety of topics like favorite foods and asks the group to get together based on their preferences, like stand over here if you like pizza and stand over here if you like pasta, for example. Then the MFLC Counselor changes up groups by calling out a different range of topics, from silly to somewhat serious, maybe a favorite animal or a least favorite vegetable, a favorite exercise, or what makes you laugh, and eventually land on topics relevant to this particular presentation, like favorite ways or most common ways to manage stress, and favorite family activities. Now, the Facilitator Guide, as we see pictured here on the right-hand side of the screen, provides a wrap-up script to tie this activity to the rest of the presentation and segue into the learning content we're about to explore. And then in the next few slides that we see, we actually discuss common sources of uncertainty and stress in military life and military family life. Here we see screenshots here of slides 4 and 5. Slide 4 on the left is a great slide to review because it provides actually ideas for situations in which this presentation may be helpful or appropriate to share at an assignment site. Scenarios related to work-life balance, deployment, redeployment and reintegration, limited resources, and waiting for orders are all common experiences within the military community and sources of uncertainty. The following slide on the right, slide 5, describes the potential consequences of these experiences and facilitates a discussion on that topic. A loss of routine and rhythm, or a loss of convenient access to needed resources, can cause additional stress for families and can impact children and families. This is so real. As a military spouse myself, and as somebody who's also supported the military like you all have and continue to do, I can tell you that family routines and rhythms are stressed when my husband's overseas, and you've likely noticed this in the military families that you support at your assignment site. I bet many of us on this call have experienced this or supported military families who have experienced this, and know that this type of conversation is very relevant to supporting military families. 2 videos are included as part of this presentation, and we'll take a moment to explore this one in particular on slide 6. This video explores the common changes within family roles and responsibilities and daily management of household routines during the deployment or TDY, temporary duty, or other geographical separation of the service member. Parenting and relationship communication are commonly impacted by challenges that create uncertainty. And this video describes common examples and recommends healthy ways to respond, including encouraging video viewers to reach out to an MFLC counselor for support. I encourage you to check it out. Also included as part of this presentation are 3 child-focused handouts. Each of the handouts explores a different angle of building skills needed for resilience during uncertainty. One handout on the left encourages children to name their feelings using emojis. And the center screenshot is a mindfulness word search, which may be helpful when facilitating discussion with older children about different concepts or terms related to the idea of mindfulness. Lastly, a multi-page packet labeled as calming strategies, as shown on the right-hand side of this screen here, helps provide a guide for parents and children and caregivers about recommendations for responding to times of uncertainty and stress experienced by children. And you might be wondering, but wait, I thought this presentation was labeled as child-focused. I thought you said it was adult-focused, and you're correct. The content of this presentation, particularly on the slides, is primarily intended for an adult-focused audience, as we mentioned moments ago. However, these handouts are excellent for sharing with MFLC program participants in any number of instances. Use these handouts anytime you feel it will benefit a child participant or a parent during a counseling session, or with a CDC school center or staff member during a consulting session, for example. When we began our discussion about this presentation a few moments ago, we emphasized that this presentation is uniquely versatile because although it's not labeled a child-focused presentation, it includes information about parenting, which may be beneficial for both CYP and adult-focused counselors alike. 2 slides in particular, which spend time discussing family dynamics during times of uncertainty, include slides 10 and 13 shown here. Common experiences in families are discussed, and suggestions are provided for parents to better understand common child behavior in times of uncertainty or stress, and how they can best support children with evidence-based recommendations. These slides in particular may work well as standalone discussions during a counseling session or consulting session, in addition to being part of the full presentation as an option. Another reminder here that handouts and activities and even discussion from presentations can be added to many different types of MFLC support. This slide provides examples to apply this information. And of course, the resiliency during uncertainty presentation and activities can be shared during an actual presentation and outreach and engagement activity. But also the common theme of what you'll hear us repeat often is that these handouts and materials, including discussions and slides, can also be used to supplement conversation during a consulting session or a counseling session. Let's talk once more about Care For, because as we know, Care For documentation is just so very important. Be sure to give yourself credit for the support that you provide in your assignment by accurately documenting the interactions and activities that you facilitate. When sharing the resiliency during uncertainty presentation or part of the presentation before an audience, document this interaction as an outreach and engagement activity, and then select presentation. Document the number of audience participants actively engaged in the presentation. And then when the question asks, what type of presentation did you provide? Select the option that best describes the primary focus of the discussions facilitated during the presentation, or the primary need that you are focusing on addressing as the MFLC counselor. Now, this may vary depending on assignment site and depending on the unique needs of your assignment site. Our recommendations include considering stress management, or maybe return reunion, or grief and loss and parenting as options. Remember that the answer to this question will vary depending on the unique needs, as we mentioned, and dynamics at your assignment site. Additionally, we have to mention that Care For documentation of interactions depends on so many different variables and may differ slightly from the recommendations that we're sharing now. Please consult with your regional supervisor to discuss any specific dynamics at your assignment, which may result in documenting the use of this presentation differently. Remember that presentation materials can also be used in consulting sessions. When using any part of a presentation, an activity from the facilitator guide, a handout, or a slide from the PowerPoint, within a consulting session, please answer yes to the question, was a presentation part of this consulting session? And then describe the type of presentation that best describes the primary focus of the discussion during your facilitation of that interaction. And remember also, as we mentioned previously in today's webinar, counseling sessions do not require that any special documentation steps are taken to notate presentation or handout use during the counseling session. You may have already noticed during your own exploration of the new OSD Presentation Library, there are multiple different presentations that address similar topics related to uncertainties, like the Resiliency During Uncertainty presentation does. These additional presentations include financial fitness, exercise, or benefits, building strong relationships, staying connected through change, or military transitions. And remember that a list of all presentations, including the brief summaries mentioned here on this slide, are available for MFLC Counselor reference anytime on the OSD presentation page of the MagellanMFLC.org website. And we'd next like to share some tips with you about presenting before an audience. In this month's webinar, we're going to focus this time on quick tips for engaging your audience during a presentation. Engaging the audience actually starts before the presentation even begins. We encourage you to make time to prepare and familiarize yourself with the content of the presentation. Your familiarity with the slides, the chosen activities, and the overall flow of the presentation is very important to helping you focus energy on connecting with the audience. Preparation before speaking facilitates your confidence in the materials, and confidence allows presenters to project with energy, and presenter energy promotes connection with the audience. The audience will feel a stronger sense of trust with the presenter, with whom they feel is confident and committed to the content being discussed. We encourage you to avoid looking at notes so much that you avoid eye contact with the audience, right? Looking at speaker notes when needed is, of course, always encouraged, right? But so long as we continue to connect with the audience using eye contact and professional body language. Now, while engaging with the audience, it's also important to read the room. While making eye contact with your audience, monitor responses as you continue through content and activities. Remember that personal stories or disclosures should only be used in situations where the MFLC counselor is certain that the discussion will support the experiences of the audience or participants. This type of storytelling may create an opportunity for connecting with the audience, or it might bring the conversation off topic. So measure the risk and be sure to stay on topic to ensure that learners remain engaged and ensure that the discussion meets the objectives for learning. Monitor audience expressions and eye contact. Does the group need a break, for example? Do you need to skip ahead to a more interactive activity? Take action to respond to the needs that you perceive within the audience. Next, we're excited to share with you information about a new training resource linked on the MagellanMFLC.org website that provides training on public speaking skills. And it's located, it's called LinkedIn Learning, and it's a collection of LinkedIn Learning courses, which are available directly from the MagellanMFLC.org website. You can access it by clicking on Training and Development. Then on the drop-down menu that appears as we see on the left of this screen, click on Counselor Professional Development. Then on the next page, scroll down to find the option circled in red on the right of the screen, which says LinkedIn Learning Public Speaking Resources. You might need to sign in again with your Magellan username and password, but this is where Magellan federal employees can access specifically chosen courses, which are short but provide exceptional training in sharpening and improving your public speaking skills. These video-based training courses created by LinkedIn Learning are hosted by true experts in communication and professional public speaking. And they're well known across the professional world and considered some of the best on-demand training available. Remember that if you're a subcontractor, you can check with your employer for more information on professional development training opportunities that they offer. Now, your challenge, Magellan federal employees, should you choose to accept it, is to complete one of these courses which range in length from 12 to 30 minutes, and share what you've learned with your regional supervisor. Send them a quick email to say, this is the course that I took and this is what I learned from it. In addition, share the same information with the MFLC counselors on your team and let them know what you thought of the courses as well. If you are using a Magellan-issued tablet to share presentation materials, it's important to note that where you can find support related to tablet use. MFLC counselors who have requested a tablet can find resources created by the MFLC Service Center team available on MagellanMFLC.org. Click on Tech Support on the upper menu bar, then Device Support, and then scroll down to find the section on smartphone and tablet resources, which are shown on this slide. If you'd like more assistance with using your tablet for MFLC work, including for presentations, or if you'd like more information about requesting a tablet if you don't have one yet, please contact the MFLC Service Center at the number listed on the screen. The number is also located on the website if you don't have it yet. And as we prepare for our Q&A time that will wrap up our webinar today, we'll take a moment to remind everyone of the standard guidance for webinar documentation in Care for and in Deltek CostPoint. To record the time that you spent in today's webinar in Care for, add an activity record as admin and SUP, and then select Other, and then select Researching New and Existing Resources. Don't forget to find Other first. If you don't choose Other, you won't see Researching New and Existing Resources appear. Then for Deltek CostPoint, use the regular charge code for labor and Deltek CostPoint for your time in today's training and today's webinar, the same charge code that you typically use for regular MFLC work. No special action is required for Deltek CostPoint documentation of today's webinar. We'd also like to share a quick reminder here that a full recording of this webinar, as well as previously facilitated webinars, will be available on the website in a couple days. The others are already there. After logging in, click on Briefings and Presentations on the upper menu bar, then on OSD Presentations. You'll see the blue button link to access the full library, which we're all already aware of, but below that is clickable access to all of the available webinar recordings. You can watch and rewatch the webinar recordings as much as you need. And before we open up our Q&A time of the webinar, we wanted to share with you the answers to a couple of anticipated frequently asked questions that we've received. The first is, when will a new brochure for POCs be available? We know that MFLC leadership has placed a request with the government customer for this, and we hope to have one available soon. In the meantime, search topics within the library, as Kathy demonstrated earlier in our webinar together, and share specific presentation titles and summaries with your POC. Maybe share a list of 3 to 5 that you think would be relevant. And then in addition, talk to your supervisor for more ideas about sharing what's available in the new library with your assignment site. Secondly, we want to share with the group that printing out presentation materials may be a great option when connectivity is difficult, especially for SOCOM assignments where the MFLC counselor cannot bring in a phone, a tablet, or access a computer at the assignment site. Talk to your regional supervisor about the process related to reimbursement for printing. And the last question on this page asks, how long will those archived or old presentations from the previous OSD library be available? We've already shared, the archived presentations are currently available, still available on the website, and will continue to be available until the government customer requests that they are removed. Once we receive that request, we will need to remove the access point for those. We do not, however, have a timeline for this, so we can't share with you exactly when that would happen. However, now is the time to go ahead and familiarize yourself with the new library and start to use those new presentations before this occurs. And one more frequently asked question to share with the group, inspired by a couple of questions that we got during our last month's Meet the Presentation webinar. It says, should we document presentations as referrals? We received this question several times, as I said, during the last webinar. So before we open up our Q&A time, let's answer this for just a moment. The answer is no. Referrals describe the ways that MFLC counselors connect service members and families with relevant military and community resources, like support organizations or agencies, offices, healthcare providers, chaplains, for examples. MFLC counselors may use the presentations as supplementals to the support they provide, but will not document the use of presentations as a referral, right? Instead, follow the guidance that we've already discussed and care for slides previously shared in this webinar and in previous webinars when documenting the use of those presentations and not as a referral. And before we open up our Q&A, you can get ready to start typing in just a moment. We want to share with you that you can mark your calendar for our next Meet the Presentation webinar. This will be on January 16th next year at 11 a.m. Eastern. That would be the day after the company recognized holiday on the 15th. You don't have to memorize that date now, but feel free to jot it down if you'd like. We'll be sending out webinar invitations along with the recording of this webinar in the coming days.